This podcast contains explicit content.
This is Hardly Focused. Part of the Solid Listen Podcast Network.
Let's begin the show by starting it.
How did you ever find us all the way out here?
Yeah, it's the first time we didn't mess up.
Well, you see, Horsey spit out a trail of ink to show us the way. Pretty smart, huh? Horsey!
Unbelievable! That little squirt screwed up our perfect plan!
I guess we'll just have to settle for little Evie.
Forget it, you old hag! We won't let you do that!
What did you just call me?
Wow, Jesse just evolved into a Flareon!
We are Hardly Focused. We are part of the Solid Listen Podcast Network. You can find us at hardlyfocused.com. We are on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. Just search for Hardly Focused. My name is Jack. Hello to Zach Ward. Good to see you.
Hello.
And Mr. David Baxter. Hello.
Hello. We're just like rolling with some hard punches right now. We're just going to open up and tug at everybody's heartstrings.
Yeah, sad day in the anime world. Rachael Lillis passed away today. The news broke today, the 12th of August. Passed away at 46, best known as the voices of Misty and Jesse in the Pokémon anime between 1998, season 1, and in 2006. I believe that's when most of the voice cast was replaced. And she also voiced Jigglypuff and Goldeen, among other Pokemon. And her work wasn't just limited to Pokemon. She was on Hunter x Hunter and countless other anime.
Oh man, I didn't realize she would. Now, I will say, I did. Back when I was really big into anime, I was a dub or a sub snob. But looking at this, she's been on a lot of stuff that I've seen the Japanese version. And I don't mean to be like she was in Slayer, she was in Revolutionary Girl Utena, she was in Shamanic Princess, which nobody knows about, and I think more people should.
Who is she in Slayer? Was she Lena?
No, Callie and Paula.
I don't even remember them.
Which one's Callie? I feel like that should be.
That's that one. I haven't seen that in forever. That reminds me of El Hazard, The Wanderers.
Oh yeah,
such a good one.
That's a great one.
Yeah, Zach, a big anime fan.
Oh yeah, no, like for a very long time. In particular, like I feel like my taste in media in general has a lot to do with like the first couple things I watched, because like I had no idea what anime was, and then like my introduction to the entire like genre was just randomly finding and starting to watch Princess Mononoke, just like and halfway through. And just like, and just like, I had no idea what it was. Like, I was just like blown away. And then just random, any avenue I could find for anime, like I found. So like, I saw a lot of like the classic, like super gory, like, Fist of the North Star, Ninja Scroll. There's a whole bunch of other ones like, I can't remember, but like, I remember there's this particular channel on, Charter before they were Spectrum, and I just forget what it was. It was like the international channel, and they had El Hazard, The Wanderers, they had Slayers, a couple other shows, and another show that I really I think kind of tweaked my interests was Serial Experiments Lane on back when Tech TV was still like not like the bro fest that it is now.
Is Tech TV even still around? Didn't that become G4?
Yeah, it's G4 now.
Well, it was. Remember, G4 was shut down. Oh, right.
Did it? Yeah,
and then it came back,
shut down.
And then it very short-lived, very controversial, and then shut down, I think. With
I didn't know it even came back.
Yeah, it was like around for 10 months, I think, and then was shut down again.
I still regularly, because people on, I still have the band that did the opening for Lane. I have some of their music.
Duvet Boa.
Yeah, and I'll see it pop up in TikTok, and I'm like, that's bizarre. Like people, and it has nothing to do. Like it's clearly not anime head. It's not like, it's just like people randomly using that song, and I'm like, And then they don't realize that they're triggering in me like the image of her sister making modem noises.
Yes. Yes.
And me kind of like having a meltdown because that was like freaky at the time.
Oh my God, have you like read the wiki like on that? Because like I just as an adult, I went back and was like, let me go back and read this. It's probably one of the things like besides the synopsis for Primer that I go back and I read. I'm just like, yeah, I didn't get any of that when I was watching it. I feel like I need to rewatch it again. It is just I love trippy like off the wall stuff. Like I'm like also a big like David Lynch fan. Like I love like all of his movies.
Do you hear he is retiring from directing in person given his age? He's immunocompromised. He was diagnosed with emphysema, so he just doesn't want to be in public anymore. He doesn't want to risk it, but he's not stopping directing. He's not retiring. He's just going to do it however possible, just not in person. And Zach, going back, I believe you two are a sub snob. You prefer the sub over the dub.
I mean, typically, yeah. Typically, I prefer sub to dub just because there are things that don't get translated correctly sometimes. And like one of my, I don't know if I've talked about this before, but like one of my greatest examples of that is when Marnie was there. It wasn't like, it was very clear to me because I remember watching the Japanese sub version and like actually around the time my own grandmother passed away. So it was like very like I cried a lot. It was, but it's one of my favorite movies. And then I remember going back and rewatching it in the American version, and the way that they describe the relationship and they make it unfold in the English makes it give weird like lesbian vibes, and like it shouldn't at all. And like you get the gravity more in the Japanese version because it's crazy, but there are actually some things that don't really translate all that well. So it's helpful sometimes to do the Japanese sub. Like I think it's more impactful.
You had mentioned Princess Mononoke, and
that's another example. Yes.
Yeah. Like one of my first jobs was working at an independent and foreign movie theater, and we were one of the few theaters that was showing Princess Mononoke when it was released. So I got to see it on the big screen, but it was the dubbed version. And later on, I'd go back and get the DVD and get the subbed version or find it at the anime store. Yeah, there's a lot more that some reason, I don't know if it's just they take it out to make the localization fit, but like the monk dude that Billy Crudup voiced has a lot more to talk about the emperor, and you learn a lot more about like the politics of the time. And I mean, it changes things a little bit so that you're like, oh, the emperor is the biggest piece of he is the real villain in that movie. Whereas like, and you kind of even get a bit of sympathy for the monk that I don't think the dubbed version has.
Yeah, because realistically, there's that. There's also the fact that they completely changed the ending for Ashitaka and Sen to actually like the way that they they recognize that they're from two completely different worlds. He just came from one end to the other of that, going from his like rural village to actually going to the Iron Town, seeing everything, and actually understanding also there's more to it than just like all of this corruption and money and capitalism and all that stuff. And he decides to live with them, and then she decides that she loves him, but that she can't like be apart. And they change that very poignant moment in the English dub for I don't understand why. So he's like, you live there and I live here, and just like it just doesn't feel as poetic. And like I also, that's part of the reason why I don't know, I'm very biased when it comes to most things. Like I like endings that aren't feel good. Like I don't care if I feel good at the end of a movie. I don't feel good if I feel good at the end of a book. If I feel something that like messes me up or stays with me or is just like disturbs me or like makes me feel wrong, like I don't know, I prefer that sometimes. And like I feel like a lot of Western audience stuff kind of tends to give you that like, oh wait, no, everything's good in the end, don't worry.
I mean, not to bring up Rogue One 2 episodes in a row here, but that is one reason why I loved Rogue One so much, why I think it's one of the best Star Wars films ever. And that's even Tony Gilroy coming in and doing the reshoots and saying, look, I don't care if this movie is good or bad. I want it to end on a sour note. Even people were upset with it ending on a positive note. And look how good it is. Every once in a while, I think
if you like trippy anime and you haven't seen Utena, I highly recommend it. And she's in the English version, and they made a movie that recapped the whole story, which is even trippier. And people have been talking about it recently because the ending of the TV show is very, I'm not going to get into spoiler territory, but it's very like unresolved in a lot of ways. But also the manga ends unresolved. But the movie kind of ties it up into a bow that some people are happy with and some people weren't.
Yeah. Does that irritate you when a series has to resort to putting a film out to conclude the story, or at least give it some sort of landing pad, either to keep the door open should it get revived or what have you? Because like, think back to, and it's a show I will never watch for this exact reason, but Firefly. I know so many people who swear by Firefly, and I'm like, I'm not watching it because I know I will love it, and I know I will be very angry when I get to the last episode, but I know it has a film that kind of ties everything together where the show didn't. So are you for that, or are you against it?
It really depends. So with Firefly, part of the problem is that Joss Whedon,
despite being a piece of garbage,
Joss Whedon has some problems with writing, and I think one of the things that made Firefly outstanding is that they were always on a time crunch and a budget crunch, so they had to edit everything within to like an inch of its life, and they had to like, if you ever like on the DVDs, this is back when I used to watch it, like the director's commentary, like they talk about that, like how much they had to kind of be like, well, we wanted to do this, but we were like, we can't do it in the budget, and we have to get this 45-minute episode out in 2 weeks. We're just going to have to do this way. And I think that constrained them in a way that is similar to like episodes 4 and 5. And I think that if he had actually had the budget to continue, like if it got popular and continued on, I think it would have been crap. And the movie, my problem with the movie is that there's too many plot points that they were trying to fix up.
Yeah.
And that kind of, to me, fucked up the story. As opposed to, as I just mentioned, Utena, I was introduced to Utena through the movie. The movie stands alone for Utena. It basically retells the story, but like does it in a different way. And there's a whole thing of like the universe is going in cycles. But also, and speaking of David Lynch, the Utena movie is so fucking trippy. Like the TV show itself is kind of trippy. And then the movie is like, somebody did something on Twitter or on TikTok and was like, I thought like somebody had made like a little music video to Kesha's Joyride. And another person was like posting on it and saying something to the effect of like, I thought this thing was about princesses and roses and shit. And I wanted to respond with like, it's about princesses and roses and cars and sex and incest and more cars. And
you had me at incest.
Yeah, like
yet half the country had incest,
right? Yeah. Like it gets fucking, and I think that movie did a really great job. Same thing with some of the Sailor Moon movies. Like I think some of the Pokemon movies added in. I think there are some shows that need to have that wrap up, but I think it's really hard for other stuff like a Firefly. And the last thing I'll say on Firefly before I pass it off to you guys is if you're like, I want to watch Firefly, but I want to watch a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, just go watch the anime Outlaw Star because it's basically the same thing.
Oh yeah, Outlaw Star. I forgot about that show.
Like even like the pilot of Firefly takes exact scenes out of Outlaw Star.
There's every once in a while, Toonami will do like dedicate an entire Saturday night overnight to pulling out one of those shows from their archive. They did it with Cowboy Bebop a few years ago, I think right around the time the live action series was going into production. And I know they've done it a couple times with Outlaw Star. That it like appointment viewing is not a thing that exists in 2024. That is a thing that back in the like probably until about 10 years ago was a thing. Every, X night, your favorite show is going to play. Think of like Friends every Thursday night. Everyone's going to gather around at 9 p.m. on NBC to watch Friends. Things like that don't happen anymore. When I hear that either Cowboy Bebop or Outlaw Star or the Big O is going to play.
Oh, Big O.
If it's going to play on Toonami, or if they're going to do a Fooly Cooley marathon because they're just going to randomly decide, hey, we're going to put out season 5. Appointment viewing. I will clear my calendar. I will do copious amounts of crack rock to stay awake all night, so I can watch every episode. And I will also, I will hide the devices. So like no distractions. Everybody shut up, leave me alone. Outlaw Star is playing for 6 hours and you better believe I'm watching it.
Yeah.
You better believe it. Well, on the topic of film and before I jump to that, actually, peace to Rachael Lillis, 46 years young, far too young.
Yeah.
And she has a GoFundMe. Her family started a GoFundMe. It was launched this past May when they announced that her cancer had spread. Basically, the inevitable was there. And as of recording, I think the goal is $100,000. And as of recording of this episode, it's at like $98,000. People are still donating to it.
That's good.
So GoFundMe, just look up Rachael Lillis, and Rachel spelled Rachael. Look that up and still donate. The fact that someone who's a celebrated, I will say celebrated voice actress who needed a GoFundMe to cover medical expenses, well, think of all the other expenses that need to be covered now that she's gone.
Yeah.
So
help
that family hit the $100,000 goal. And then some people are still donating today, I saw. So,
yeah.
But now I want to say it's on a lighter note, but at the same time, it's not really a lighter note, but we're talking about film, and something that should be of interest to the three of us is the Borderlands film. And that was released last week. That's been in production for a very long time, and it shouldn't surprise anybody that it is terrible.
I mean, no, yeah, it shouldn't. Isn't what Kevin, what's his face in it?
The very small man.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bad idea.
Kevin Hart. It's a star-studded cast. It's got Kate Blanchett, and she's playing Lilith.
Can we just pause for a second? Like, I am a little upset that we keep having a star-studded cast for things like this. Like, I don't give a fuck. Can we actually get people that are actually going to give the characters and the story justice? Like, that's what I care about. I don't care if you have like the Fallout show is a great example. Like, the clips that I've seen of it, immaculate, sounds good. Like, and honestly, I'm sure they've taken a couple liberties. I'm sure it's not exactly exact for everything that's been going on in it, but like, I like that it's still its own thing while also giving a lot of homage to what it's drawing from, because I get it, certain things can't really translate that well into TV shows. Like, games can, but like, I feel like if you do it wrong, or like especially with anime, because like we talked about, you even mentioned the live action of Cowboy Bebop and I cringed visibly.
When you say movies of anime or movies of video games, the thing that still sticks in my head, because it was Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within.
Oh yeah, yep. I've watched that multiple times, and each time I'm just like, no.
is what I think about that.
Yeah.
And I'm not
looking at.
I'm not a big. I'm getting into Final Fantasy. I was never a big like RPG player, and right now I'm playing Crisis Core for the first time. And at some point I'm going to pick up Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. At some point maybe I'll even play through and finish Final Fantasy VII. I've started that game so many times, but like I'm all over the place with the Final Fantasy series. But even before I had any sort of interest in these games, I was told avoid Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within like the plague.
Yeah.
Like get the plague. Having the plague would actually be better than watching that film.
To give you some perspective on what me and David are feeling, the hype that this movie had around the time when Final Fantasy was really turning up, it was insane. Like people were like frothing at the mouth at it being like, because we were all expecting it to be a Final Fantasy VII movie. Realistically, and what we got was something that was such a far cry from what Final Fantasy is, that the only thing that slightly resembled anything Final Fantasy wise was like the fact that there was a character named Sid.
Yeah,
that was it.
No use of materia. There's no chocobos where they're Moogles.
There was absolutely nothing that resembled anything from any of the other worlds. They didn't draw on anything from any of the world. They literally just used Final Fantasy-esque characters and made it purely sci-fi with no fantasy elements.
How does that compare to the Dragon Ball live action film?
I haven't seen it. I
haven't seen it. Yeah, I haven't.
Yep. Nope. Saw the poster art. Just like, nope.
Nope. Let me put it this way. It's sort of the equivalent of when we all walked into the Dungeons and Dragons movie, the first one. Only imagine that movie without Jeremy Irons.
Okay. Or the Shyamalan take on The Last Airbender.
Oh, yep. That's another one I refuse to watch. Yeah.
I haven't seen that yet.
I heard the concept was like, no. Yeah. I'm not going to watch that.
I love watching the interviews that news stations were doing at midnight showings for The Last Airbender. And they were like talking to people as they were going in, and they were cosplaying. They were all dressed up as characters from the show. And I'm going to preface this by saying I have never watched the cartoon. I know it's phenomenal. I know it's one of the best cartoons ever made, but so I'm familiar with the source material, but just amused at all these people going into the film, and then they leave 2 hours later, and just visible anger, like not even sadness, just anger. Like people taking the same reporter walks up to them and thrusts some microphone in their face so they could give a review on the film, and they're just taking their anger out on the world because it was so bad. So that's what I imagine Final Fantasy Spirits Within was like. Not to mention, didn't it come out around the time that Final Fantasy X released?
Yeah.
It was close. Yeah, it was close around that time. So there's a lot of hype for Final Fantasy building.
Yeah. Because I remember in college, I remember my boyfriend at the time and I were at a party, and like we were watching, I think the Final Fantasy VIII trailer had just dropped, and we were like watching that on a loop because it was so like, oh my gosh.
I don't want to get in a rant. Like Final Fantasy VIII makes me want to rant because there's so many things that I wish they would just go back and do because it gets such a bad rap. But I love the story. I just wish they just so many things that were going wrong for them.
They really hit some things that were really amazing, and then they had some things that were like you tried.
Yes. Yeah. That story is very convoluted, but there's so much into it that could be really good. But I don't want to derail.
We could do we could do an entire episode about Final Fantasy if you want.
No, easily. Yes. In fact, that should be a special episode where we just talk about, like, we should actually do that. That's a great idea. We should do a highlight of things that we love and just like go in depth on it, like Half-Life and the fact that we're never going to get a Half-Life 3. We're all gonna be on our deathbeds before they're like, here's a trailer for Half-Life 3. Well, it's like, oh fuck,
I'd be willing to
can't
talk
even use my hands.
Everyone's ears off about how I was like the only person playing Final Fantasy 11.
No!
Is that the
when
online
they first
one?
started?
Yeah, that was because that was the
Ooh, I've heard
first
the
online
stories.
one. But no, it was actually a fun game. I think it has some of the best music in Final Fantasy. Like the music was great. The story, once you kind of pieced it together, like I would love for them, while we're talking about re-releases, if they ever want to like redo that so it's not an online game and just do like the story mode. Like I think that would be a really good addition to the Final Fantasy series. But you know, I'm not a major video game producer.
Yeah. I dabbled in Final Fantasy 13 and kind of fell off with that, which was kind of like disappointing just because I know it's a big series, like just 13.
It's another game that
itself.
I can rant about for like for one of your first entries to play. Like, yeah.
We should do an episode where we do just I'll let you guys just rant about the Final Fantasy games, but I want to set myself up to actually, and we should have Ack here too, because I know Ack is playing or has played through the originals because they were all released on the Switch and he was making his way through. I have access to the originals, and I will explain why later on in this episode, but how I got access to those, but not like it's hard. But I would like to experience it too for the first time. I would like to finally, at almost 35 years old, become familiar with all of these references. And
to my right, for those of you who are seeing this on video, down there, I have a storage container unit thing here.
Yeah.
In one of the drawers is the Super Nintendo that I got for Christmas in like 1989. And with that, I have the Final Fantasy 2, which was actually 4, but 2 cartridge. So it was like the dialed down one.
Yeah.
It had the original Final Fantasy 3 cartridge, which is the Final Fantasy 6, as well as I think I still have Link to the Past. I know I have Chrono Trigger.
Another good one.
Yeah. So and like all like Super Nintendo chunk.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love what you just mentioned, the naming convention.
Yeah.
In Japan, it's this. What in the US, it's 2.
Well, they kept skipping over them, so that like in the US, it was Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy 2, Final Fantasy 3. Well, the Mystic Quest was in there, but people don't count that. And then so Nintendo lost the rights to the Final Fantasy series because the Nintendo 64 was not going to be a disc compatible game, and I guess it was Square Enix or whatever the company.
Enix at the time.
Yeah, Enix. Yeah, Enix wanted it to be on a disc format, so they switched over to the Sony PlayStation, and they released it as Final Fantasy 7, and everyone was like, "What happened to 4, 5, and 6?"
Those don't exist. Now we'll never speak of this again.
Right. And then when the internet came out, we all realized that 6 was 3 and 2 was 4.
Oh my God. See, I have enough trouble with numbers in their linear order.
Yeah.
All right. Now when the Japanese come in and start messing it up for me, I mean, come on.
I think it was more the Americans because to add to this, there's a number of Game Boy games that were included in the Final Fantasy title, but were not Final Fantasy games.
Oh, what were they? Like just like run-of-the-mill RPGs that aren't connected?
Yeah, there was a whole series. I think they're called Saga. Okay. And so they got released in the US as Final Fantasy Legends. And I think it was just because they were like, nobody's going to buy this game that's called Saga, but they will buy it because they buy Final Fantasy games if we put the name Final Fantasy on this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I know one of them is like you're climbing up a tower. Yeah. I know one of them, the direct plot is you're climbing up a tower in order to like destroy God.
That sounds normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, sounds Japanese.
Yeah.
Chrono Trigger is on my list, and I think it's included with the Super Nintendo Classic, the mini console. But I wasn't like, I knew it existed, but I really wasn't familiar with it. And then the creator of Dragon Ball passed away a few months ago. And
Akira Toriyama.
And Chrono Trigger, all of a sudden, everyone's talking about it just because it was, I mean, he's involved with it. And then the cover art all of a sudden made sense. I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay. But people are saying this game's a masterpiece. You got to try it.
It really is.
It's on my never-ending list, but I'm on a retro kick, so I will get to it.
It's one of the few games I would call a perfect game.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How many perfect games do you have?
I don't know. Because let me put it this way. The original Final Fantasy VII, I think, is a great game, but I think it is not a perfect game because
I would agree with that.
It everything crunches to a halt at the end of disc 2, and disc 3 is like side quest hell and the final boss. And I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah.
So a lot of games that I played that are really good fall into that category. But I think the other game that I would consider, I want to call it perfect, but it's close to being damn perfect, is Eternal Darkness.
Okay. Remind me, what did that come out on? Was that PS2?
It's the GameCube.
GameCube, okay.
Yeah. It's the one that fucks with your head.
I've seen clips of that game. I love and I love games like that. It's hard for me to play them, but I do love watching playthroughs of them. For me, I'd say probably a perfect game would be Legend of Dragoon, only because even though it gets a bad rap, sometimes being very formulaic, for the time that it was developed, it tackled some pretty interesting game mechanics, and the community behind it is still very strong and active and hungry. And the thing that makes it perfect for me is that it is a game that I have gone back to countless times to beat, and I don't really do that with games. It is very rare for me to want to pick up a game and go through it again, because the entire experience is enjoyable. And even after beating it multiple times, it was because I wanted more out of that world. So to me, that's kind of what defines a perfect game. And I love Chrono Trigger, but and I consider it a perfect game. But if I had to weight Chrono Trigger with Chrono Cross, Chrono Cross is, I played both of them at the same time. I was introduced to both of them at the same time, but Chrono Cross got me because it taught me what immersion in games could really be. And there's just so many times I would just sit and just listen to the compositions by Yasunori Mitsuda and just be and then just reading up on them and just being most of that I I would just go to bed, and then I'd have a dream, and I'd wake up, and then I would just make a song for the game. It was just that's amazing. And and I don't know. First, something about games as art, those are two examples that I stick out in my mind.
Chrono Cross is an absolutely beautiful game. It is just, even with the weird PlayStation 1 fuzziness of it all, the backgrounds are stunning, the character art is stunning, the music, it's one of those ones where in college I had to go and download the entire soundtrack because but piece by piece through Napster, or it might have been LimeWire at the time.
LimeWire. Yep. You did the same thing I did. Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because so when Princess Mononoke came out, I recognized it because at the anime store, one of the CDs in the little anime section was the Princess Mononoke soundtrack, but it was in Japanese. I didn't know any Japanese at the time. So when the movie came out and I really, really liked it and I loved the score, I went back to there and I picked it up and I was I'm pretty sure this is Princess Mononoke, so I'm just going to go ahead and buy it. And there was no one of those for Chrono Cross. I had to get it online.
You literally had to buy I still remember the cover art for it, because I remember looking for it intensely, and I don't have enough money to buy this, but I want it.
I would now. I mentioned older games. I mean, I'm always going to default to saying that the Last of Us, perfect game. I mean, just story alone. I mean, gameplay too. I mean, I know a lot of people were really butthurt over the gameplay in that game and the difficulty level. But Yeah, I mean that is anytime if someone were to ask me your like top 3 games, and I mean top 3, I mean I think they all came out the same year. 2013 was an oddly amazing year for games that we have just, it hasn't been repeated. I think that was it. I would say that was the last great year for games in terms of how many bangers came out, like just all within a span of a few months. Obviously great games have come out since then, but I can't think of any year where I could say like hit after hit came out. I mean, also too, that was the year that my 3 favorite games came out there, and there's BioShock Infinite and Grand Theft Auto 5. Grand Theft Auto 5, if you're only looking at the campaign version, single player, I should say, single player games, no microtransactions.
Yeah.
That, and I think that's why nowadays it's hard to pinpoint, like, okay, name like several 10 out of 10 games that came out in the span of a year. It's difficult because A, the turnaround time for production, and B, chances are something that's close to being great is going to either have some live service component to it or some online component, microtransaction, what have you. It's not going to just be a sit down, play through and have that be it.
Yeah. I've been meaning to replay BioShock Infinite. And like you said, Zach, it's one of the few games that I'll go back to on a regular basis. I keep going back to it. There's something about it that I just absolutely love, that it scratches an itch that the original BioShock hit and never quite managed to scratch. As much as I love that game.
I just love an Infinite when you get to Columbia for the first time.
Yeah.
And then when you emerge outside and the barbershop quartet floats by and they're singing an old ragtime version of God Only Knows by the Beach Boys, which you're scratching your head like, wait a minute, this song came out in the 60s. Yeah. I'm in 1911 right now. What the hell is going on? And then you find out. Maybe it takes a few playthroughs for you to know exactly what's going on. But then at some point you find out why this is happening.
Have you played the DLC for those? The 2 DLCs for those?
Oh man, I've played through the first part several times. And for some reason, I think I maybe played like 20 minutes of part 2 and I just never finished it. And I think some of it is just stubbornness. Like, I don't want to finish this. I don't want it to be over. I just want it to keep going on. Maybe if I don't finish it, then technically it never ended.
That's like, I 100% get that, because I like the DLCs, but I don't like the way they wrapped it into the Rapture storyline itself.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, in college, I used to watch the movie Moulin Rouge, but there's a scene where they've all come together. They've all sang the big pretty song. They're like, it's the ending of the big spectacular, and the curtain closes. And like afterwards, that's when Christian turns back and Nicole Kidman dies. But like, the curtain would close and I turned it off and go like, they all lived happily ever after.
It's like, you mentioned Moulin Rouge. I was thinking of, the set, I think would be the first or second film in Baz Luhrmann's trilogy there, because I know Moulin Rouge fits in there somewhere, but like Romeo and Juliet, if you just shut it off 3/4 of the way through, then Romeo and Juliet live happily ever after.
Yeah.
Judas is the BioShock successor that's coming out at some point. That's what Ghost Story Games has been working on for the last decade.
Okay.
And the trailer, I mean, you watch the trailer, it's BioShock.
Right.
It's just BioShock. But Ken Levine, never quite knew how to pronounce it. And by the way, there's a book by Jason Schreier called Press Restart, which I love. And there's a lot of Ken Levine in there. A lot of stories about him. A lot of stories that all make sense when you hear about BioShock's, especially Infinite's troublesome development, and then Irrational just all of a sudden shutting down. But one thing Levin was talking about and why this game has taken so long to make is that narrative Legos, they're calling it. And it seems like it's going to be a lot of butterfly effect type of things. You know, if you You may it kind of like the factions in like Fallout New Vegas, for example. If you make person A happy and you piss off person B as a result, well, that's going to send you down a path in the main story that you could potentially rectify or reset by just making certain people happy or doing certain things. I guess it's going to be like one of those things where the story doesn't play out the same way twice, but we'll see actually how
So they're going to Dragon Age it?
They're going to try. They're going to try. Dragon Age I couldn't get into. Mac and I did a whole segment a few episodes ago where he's talking about how happy he is about the Veilguard, and I decided to give Origins a try, and just like, I couldn't do it, man. I tried. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ack.
I mean, I understand. Like, I'm a diehard JRPG fan. Especially lately, I've been more into the action-oriented like RPGs because it's actually getting to be a problem. It's getting harder for me to go back to the turn-based games. I'm just like, oh, I just want to just hit all the buttons because it's just like, I don't know, my ADHD just wants to just do things with my hands.
Yeah, that's why I love Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I anticipate I'll like Rebirth. I guess like even in 13 you were doing something similar, but that it's not turn-based.
See,
It's
I'm the
all
opposite. I get overwhelmed when it's not turn-based because like I can go through and I think it's just it manifests differently for me because when it's I compare it a lot to your turn-based RPG. I'm able to go through the menu and everything's paused and I can be like, okay, what do I want to do and how do I want to do this? Whereas with something like the first boss I remember like this was Dongo Dongo in not Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time.
The Spirit Temple.
Yeah, the one with the hands.
Bosses. Yeah.
The one with the hands, like that one just like freaked me out because I was like, oh god, I hit you again.
Yeah, because he was invisible. It kept circling around, and you needed to use the lens of truth to be able to see him. And like, I get it though. It makes sense now why I'm playing games like the East series where like they have like super ultra hard mode where like things hit you like 2 times as hard, and I'm like flying across the screen and then dying like 80 times.
Yeah.
I think I've asked this. I definitely haven't asked this audience, but I know in past episodes I've asked this because you mentioned Ocarina of Time. And the first time I played that was on the 3DS. It was the 3DS version. And I understand that the game is true to the N64 version as you could possibly get, to the point where bugs that made it into the retail version of the game were not patched out in the 3DS version. Like it's just it's like a 1-to-1 port basically, even though it was built for the 3DS. And I got through the water temple in one sitting.
Oh wow.
And it was challenging, and now I think I dedicated an entire night to it, but it was definitely challenging. But then I was told that I had it easy because I was using or taking advantage of the touchscreen on the 3DS, not having to use an N64 controller. So do you think I had it easy? Do you think do you think I had it easy by playing the 3DS version? Should I go back and torture myself with the N64 version and an N64 controller?
No, because like here's the thing. The reason people had trouble with the water temple is because the whole point of the water temple was remembering what you had access to on different levels. And that tripped a lot of people up who were used to going through the game, just being like having simple puzzles or just like, go here, go to this floor, do this thing, take out this enemy, you get a small key, you get the compass. The water temple is the first time it's like, all right, you could literally work yourself into a rut if you didn't know how to double back and how to make use of the water mechanic. It was a puzzle. And like, if you're good at puzzles, it's not super challenging, but like, it is funny how many people struggled with it. Like, I honestly I've beaten the game in like a day before. So I don't know. I can't really say anything.
You beat it in a day. That's impressive.
Yeah.
No. One day when I was a kid, I woke up at like 4 or 5 a.m. and I was like, I'm awake. I'm gonna play Legend of Zelda all day until I beat it. And then I did it. And I don't know how I did it, but I did it.
See, I can do that with the Sonic games, but I mean, maybe other people like with the original Sonic games, same deal. They, if they're not familiar with it, then, or if they don't play them all that often, then they dedicate a lot of time to it. Whereas I can just sit down and it's like, all right, speed run. And that includes getting all the Chaos Emeralds.
Yeah, I wish I could do that. I can't do that. Like Sonic was those are the games that I started with. And like I've gone back to play them and beat them so many times. It's like, nope, it's just nostalgia at this point. Like I enjoy it. That's why like the new one that like when we had the episode when it first dropped, when we started playing, like I platinumed that game.
Oh, Frontiers.
So hard. Yes, it was so much fun. I can't wait for them to do something else in that vein even longer because it was too short.
There's also that in Final Fantasy IX, one of the best swords you can get only if you speed run the entire game and get to like the final dungeon in under 12 hours. I believe it's 12 hours, and they include cutscenes, so you have to skip all of the cutscenes.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So can you actually skip them, or are there unskippable cutscenes?
No, you can skip them. Like I guess you press like start twice or something. It's like an Elden Ring. If you get to a boss scene, you can press the start button.
Okay.
And it skips it.
God, that was a thing. That was so infuriating about the first Kingdom Hearts game.
Mm-hmm.
Beating it on PS2 and then beat it on PS3. And I remember on PS3, I was having a bitch of a time at one of the final bosses before I realized I just had a terrible build. And all I did was just change up what I had equipped. And then all of a sudden, that battle was super easy. But the thing about that was PS2 version, because I sort of had a similar experience on the PS2 version. There's a cutscene to place before that, and you cannot skip that. And there were times where I had it timed out perfectly, or I was repeating it so much that I would just get up and leave the room, and I would count it down in my head. Be like, all right, it's been about, say 2 minutes. All right, let's go back. Let's go. Is cutscene done? All right, we're getting there. That's fine. But I just, because I'm like, I'm not sitting through this again. I cannot.
If you think that's bad, you should look up cutscenes for Xenosaga for the the Xenosaga games for PS2.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that takes the cake. I don't know what they were doing. I think they were skippable, if I recall correctly. But like, there were so many of them, and they were so long, and a lot of them didn't really feel like they were super like necessary, but it was just because they could do so much with it that they did. But I definitely get what you mean. I completely forgot also about that with Final Fantasy IX. There's also Final Fantasy VIII. If you get enough of the right cards early in the game, you just get the ultimate weapon before you even leave disc 1. Which I did, and it was worth it.
Okay. Zach, you mentioned JRPGs. Have you ever wanted to make a game in RPG Maker?
I've started quite a few times trying to make a game in RPG Maker, and it was what made me realize I just want to play the game. Like, I don't want to make the world that the game exists in. Like, I wouldn't mind role playing in the world, but like, it's a lot of work because realistically, it's if I recall correctly, RPG Maker is a lot about you can build like maps and characters and all of that, but the big thing that makes your game a game is the events. Like, you have to, like, all of the RPG games that you make with that are all event based. I wonder if I really looked, I'm sure there's like corners of the internet where people dedicated hours and hours of their lives to make games, then just load them for people to just download and play. But because that actually sounds pretty interesting. But I've tried it a couple times. I just couldn't get into making it myself. It's like I definitely enjoy just jumping into the world rather than creating it myself.
And I feel like you can see why there's so many formulaic JRPGs out there.
Yes. because especially with what they had the ability to do then was limited. That's why I feel like Final Fantasy VIII was an interesting time, because all of the popularity of 7, because it was like it was really gaining popularity. They were doing really well with Final Fantasy in the American market, and there's a lot of hype for 8. And then I feel like because the PS1, you could do a lot more on it. That kind of blinded a lot of what they're doing initially, because it felt like they were focusing a lot on like the graphics, and like it's pretty amazing some of the different things that you can see in the game, but the storyline definitely fell apart somewhere, and there's a lot of things that didn't really make a whole ton of sense.
We all have amnesia, and we were orphans together.
Also, this is the Empress of Time, and she's just gonna go boop to time, and it's gonna just be nothing.
Yeah.
And your girlfriend is possessed by her, maybe.
It's always a question mark. Well, can I do a product review?
Sure.
Okay.
I've been really excited.
I don't know
about
why I'm saying yes. Like I have any.
Well, I kind of told you a little bit about it offline, off air, David, but I've been curious in this little device. And Zach, I don't know if you have heard of it or if you even have one, but it's called the Anbernic. That's the company that makes it. And this model.
No, what is that?
This model is the RG28XX. That is their naming convention, by the way. So if you want to look up any of these Anbernic products, good luck trying to figure out the product names, because they are all like code like this. And by the way, I pay for this myself. No one gave this to me. I just think it's cool. I just want to show it off. Handheld emulator. I mean, first of all, look how tiny this thing is. Like,
that's pretty small.
Good.
USB-C, rechargeable. This particular model, I mean, it's looks like a Game Boy. It's even got the same color scheme, but it can do up to PSP. It's got like every console on here, like loaded up via RetroArch. It's also got arcade emulators, so it's got like MAME on it, for example, and Neo Geo, preloaded too. I was expecting to have to, just procure games, copies legally, of course, paid with my own money.
Yeah, all legal,
incredibly legal. And in fact,
only legal supported on of course.
I just can't stress just how legal all of this is. But it comes preloaded with a bunch of games, and playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 on this tiny little thing, just how far we have come in technology. Because remember, that was a PlayStation game, that was a Sega Dreamcast game, and I'm playing the Dreamcast version of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 on this thing. And this is the thing I love too. You can see it on the screen. I don't know if you can see it, but it even does it does the entire Dreamcast boot sequence.
There we go.
Yeah.
I was about to say, then maybe I could finally play one of the Kingdom Hearts that I haven't played, but I just realized that I have access to Birth by Sleep. It's Dream Drop Distance that I don't have.
Oh, they're both so good.
Okay.
One of them there's a Game Boy Advance one, right? That
I think
that
that's
Chain
the
of
one
Memories?
that's the card game. Then I can't do that one. I
Chain of
can't.
Memories.
Just like Chain of Memories. No, the one where it's Kyrie and she's singing. No.
Wait, there's a singing one?
There's there's one where like Kyrie's like the main character, and it's like all song based, and like it is, again, because it's Kingdom Hearts part of the timeline, but I'm like,
is
I
it
can't.
Melody of Memory?
Yes, I just and like I heard about it as like I can't. I'll watch an abridged like breakdown version of it. I'm not gonna. Like same thing with Chain of Memories. I tried playing it and like I started getting into and used to the card mechanics, and then like I hit a wall like once or twice and was like, this isn't fun. I want to actually play as the characters.
I finished Chain of Memories, and I finished the 358 by 2 days, But those are two. Like I've gone back to play Kingdom Hearts. I've gone back to play Kingdom Hearts 2. I have yet to play Kingdom Hearts 3.
Don't.
But I have what is it? The 1.5 and the 2.5 final mixes that have like Birth by Sleep and Recoded and whatever the hell it is.
Their naming conventions are bizarre. It's just like this Anbernic line. Just the naming conventions make zero sense.
Listen,
they really don't.
There's not a whole lot that is linear and makes sense with the Kingdom Hearts. You just timeline. You just kind of have to accept it if you like those games.
Quick, if I just, I'm going to hold this up to the screen and watch me be terrible at this because I'm not actually going to control it, but this is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 on this little device.
Ooh.
To quote Todd Howard, it just works.
Yeah.
I give this, honestly, man, I'm going to give this like a 9 out of 10, this entire device here, because it's easy. Despite like running Linux, it's actually, I found it pretty easy to set up and use. I take a point off just because of the sound. The sound, like
I was gonna ask, like, is Power Man 5000 coming through good?
Yeah, I mean the music. Yeah, thankfully the whole soundtrack is there. It's just like every once in a while, like the sound just kind of like, I don't know if it's the chip or whatever, but the sound just kind of dips out in random spots. Like if you do like, and this is specific to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, but if you do like a special move and you know it does sort of that, like that sound. It'll do like it'll sound like a little click, like it doesn't process the whole sound. So I take a point off for that. But the fact that I could X out of this and switch over to a different RetroArch core and fire up Sonic Advance, for example, which was preloaded, or Final Fantasy. I'll talk about that. Said I get back to it. The original Final Fantasy games, most of them are on here. So Final Fantasy 1, at some point I'm going to jump into it. It's insane. This thing is insane. And it comes with a 64 gig card too, with everything preloaded in it. $40, by the way, $40 for
not
this
bad.
thing.
Nice.
And they make several different models. This is like, I'd say like one of the weaker ones. The next tier up has dual analog sticks, and it looks like a Switch. They're all kind of modeled after old consoles, or contemporary consoles too. So you got a model that looks like a Switch Lite. You got a model that looks like a PS Vita. They have one. It's called the Arc, and it is modeled after a Sega Saturn controller. And its big claim to fame is that it can run Saturn games.
Call me up when they have the Nintendo Power Glove version.
I love the Power Glove, man. It's so bad. Hold on. Wait a minute. I'm glad you said that. Do I have it in here? Do I not have it in here? I thought I do.
I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
Oh my god.
Do you remember that old I can't remember now. Is that old movie? There was like this kid, like there was like this little brother that was like a gaming prodigy, and they like
the Wizard.
Yes,
that's what that's from.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I was going nuts. I don't have it labeled as the Wizard. I just have it labeled as Power Glove, and I was about to rip my hair out trying to find it.
Introduced all of us how to get that warp whistle.
Yes, I was just gonna say that. It's like that. I will never forget that. For that one level in Mario, I will always remember that.
Wasn't that movie just a advertisement for Super Mario Brothers 3? Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like
and the Power Glove.
It was Fred Savage,
Jenny Lewis, who I just saw with the Postal Service a couple months ago.
Oh.
And I forget who the little brother was, but yeah, nobody.
I just remember. I can't remember. I think it's the little brother. Like he gets kidnapped at some point, and he's in a station wagon. And the guy driving just goes like he chucks a lollipop in his face and just goes, "Here, kid, have a sucker." Much like the Power Glove, that movie is bad.
Yeah.
Probably.
I don't think I've seen it since it came out, and I haven't watched it because I have like a rosy memory of it as a kid, and I know it's not. Yeah.
If I feel the same way about the Super Mario Brothers movie with John Leguizamo and what's his name? I can't remember his name.
Dennis Hopper.
Not just Anthony Hopkins.
Oh
yeah,
right.
I thought it was Hopper that was in that.
Hopper.
Yeah,
he was. Yeah, he was Bowser or King Koopa.
So here's another reason why I'm no longer married. Kate loves
Oh, Jesus.
that movie. Like she will swear by its quality.
Huh.
I'm like, look, there's movies that you can love to hate, and then there are movies that, like, if you say it's a good movie, like, look, I like my share of movies that, like, people say are terrible. Like, if you want to debate, like, you know, Super Mario Brothers versus Twister, then okay. But she would stab someone to defend Super Mario Brothers.
Was it the Koopa's? Was it the Koopa's face? Because like I'm just like remembering, like for some reason I just feel like that would be a hill that she would die on. That's wonderful. Oh my god.
I mean, if you want,
I think I had messaged you because there was one of the other podcasts that I'm on. We do bad Christmas movies, and there was one that was like a Christmas movie Twister.
I meant to watch that before we got together here tonight. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I gotta... Oh no, it's fine. I forgot that I had mentioned it, and then like, I was like, while I was watching it, I was like, this is a Jack movie.
Well, I saw Twisters and I loved it. So, and I want to see it again. It's actually coming out on demand, I think, tomorrow. So, despite it doing well, I guess the turnaround, it's not uncommon for even good films to come out on demand. A month after they come out, if that. But
remember when you had to wait like 6 months for the good ones?
Yeah,
I feel like Top Gun Maverick was like that. It was a very long time before that showed up on demand. But Oppenheimer too. We're going to wait a long time for Oppenheimer. But to sort of Danny Bonaducci, go back to the Borderlands star-studded cast. I mean, Super Mario Brothers. So Bob Hoskins is Mario.
Bob Hoskins, that's what it was. I knew I got it wrong.
John Leguizamo or Leguizamo. I say Leguizamo. Thanks, Kate. She said that enough that it's now instilled into my head, and that's what I'm going to call him now. John Leguizamo is Luigi. Dennis Hopper is Koopa. Samantha Mathis is Princess Daisy. Even Dan Castellaneta played the narrator.
Huh.
Oh,
didn't realize that.
The great Lance Henriksen as the king. And then Frank Welker as Yoshi and the Goombas, which, I mean, Frank Welker is
Frank Welker is can do nothing. Can do anything. He can do anything.
Super Mario Brothers as a film, awful. Borderlands as a film, awful. As of recording, Borderlands has a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 50% audience score. The day that film came out, it had a 0%. So, a little encouraging to see that it went up 9 whole.
I didn't even know it was coming out. I mean,
compared to Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, which has a 44% on Rotten Tomatoes. Borderlands, $8.8 million to make against a production budget of $115 million.
Wow.
So that film is not breaking even unless somehow it does well in China, which it might, because that China is the only thing that saved, for example, Terminator Genesis. That could have been a box office disaster, and then it came out in China, and China thought it was the greatest film ever made. So Borderlands might have a second life overseas, but at least here, despite Jamie Lee Curtis, despite Jack Black, despite Kevin Hart, despite Kate Blanchett, it's awful. Even Randy Pitchford.
Yeah, because you can't just put good or big name actors in a movie about a thing that people know about and expect it to be good. That's not video game fans. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Were you born yesterday? We are the worst people to do that with. Like, don't do that. Don't do that.
Well,
it was like
David, to your point about not knowing the movie was coming out, these cosplayers that I follow on Instagram, all of a sudden last week they're all doing Mad Moxie cosplays, and like Jessica Negri, who did a fantastic Mad Moxie back when Borderlands 2 came out. I'm like, why is she doing this again? And then why are all these other ones doing Mad Moxie? And it turns out they were all being paid by whichever company made Borderlands to don the costume once again and do a big marketing push for the film. I forgot to. Eli Roth directed this, so shouldn't surprise anybody that it's terrible. Even though Thanksgiving finally came out. I've been waiting for that since that fake trailer came out in the Grindhouse movie from 2007. We finally got Thanksgiving, and it apparently was really good. I need to see it. I put.
That was that the one where like they're all pilgrims.
Yeah, it's like set in Massachusetts, and there's like a murderer who's like dressed as a giant turkey. Or a pilgrim. I can't remember. I remember Michael Biehn is in it in the trailer, and he was supposed to be the main character. And if they had made a feature length, thought I had the sound drop, but I don't. Michael Biehn playing the sheriff in that movie, and then they gave it to McDreamy from Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah,
but wasn't there also a movie where it was like a killer, but it was like Winnie the Pooh?
Blood and Honey.
Oh,
yeah,
that was also underwhelming.
That's a thing. Well, that's because Winnie the Pooh is now in the public domain. So what's the first thing you do when something like that becomes public domain? You make a horror movie out of it.
Yeah.
Well, not surprising that Borderlands is as good as it is. And then Randy Pitchford, who's a donkey, he's the guy who's in charge of Gearbox, is very nicely distancing himself from the film because he says, quote, "There's no outcome that can hurt the games. I'm flattered by and happy to live in a world where our fans believe what we are doing in the games is worth more to them than what some of the biggest and best actors and filmmakers did with the movie. The money surrounding the movie is the movie studio's risk, so I'm not affected by that, except that if the studio loses money, then they may not want to make another movie, which would be a shame."
Okay.
And then Strauss Zelnick, who's the CEO of Take-Two, who makes lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of money, says very bluntly, give the film a chance.
Okay.
To which I say, give me Grand Theft Auto 6 already. Not even that. Give me a remaster of Red Dead Redemption. Give me that.
Yeah.
But they canceled it. So maybe see Borderlands next week when it probably comes out on demand. But Borderlands, a game that I'm actually playing through the first one right now. I don't think I've ever finished a Borderlands game. Played a lot of 2, lost interest in 3, much like I lost interest in Kingdom Hearts 3. But the original Borderlands game, I'm like trying to make it a point to play it all the way through, and I'm probably about halfway right now. But the games are good. There's just, I mean, unless you made an animated movie or a CG movie based on the franchise, a live action film, like right from the start, as it is with any live action video game adaptation, more often than not, it's not going to be good. The only good ones we've had as of late, The Last of Us and Fallout. And then I think that Mortal Kombat one from a couple of years ago was okay. It did well enough to get a sequel. So like we got that, but then think of your Super Mario Brothers, think of your Mortal Kombats from the 90s, your Spirits Within. The list goes on.
The first Silent Hill movie was good.
Oh, I heard the Gran Turismo.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Was good too.
The second one was but I mean,
hey, you mentioned Silent Hill. Guess what today is? It's an anniversary. 10 years since PT was released.
Oh man.
What did you think about PT? David, did you play it?
Which one's PT? I don't.
So it was the trailer that came out that was like at the end of it, it was teasing that like Norman Reedus was going to be the main character, and it like it was like there was a lot of weird hype around it because like they released it as like a trailer, and like I think people had like a certain amount of time to like have access to it, and it was just like it was really creepy. And you had to keep recycling through this one segment of was just walking through this hallway in this house until you eventually like figured out all the things that you were supposed to do to be able to get through and progress to the end of the actual sequence. So it was like really well done. It was really creepy. Like it was like I don't know. It was like I liked it for the time because I didn't really feel like people cared about making like game demos like that. So like, cause like, I had like a PlayStation magazine. I had Nintendo Power. Like I had the demo discs. Like I still have a lot of my old demo discs from back then in
same.
my classic like CD case.
Yep.
And they don't do that really anymore at all, because like most games now, like they basically push it out in like version 2.5 beta test, and then let the player base like test debug it for them, and then hit them with microtransactions afterwards, because they just want to push the game out as soon as possible so they can start turning a profit.
Yep. David, the PT stood for playable teaser.
Oh, okay.
And it was developed by a studio that no one had ever heard of called 7780 Productions or Studios. And, it's a fake studio. And then, as Zach mentioned, at the end, you got a very short teaser for a game that was never released called Silent Hills. And it was going to be a collaboration between Kojima and Guillermo del Toro. Starring Norman Reedus.
And there's like a lot of stuff that happened, and like, because I know Hideo walked away from Capcom, right, if I recall correctly, because there's a bunch of stuff that happened.
Kojima Productions during the development of Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah, because all of this was
left.
happening around the time when PT's trailer released, and then that affected everything. So then they stopped doing that. But that's why Guillermo del Toro, Kojima, and Norman Reedus worked together on Death Stranding.
Yep.
Because that was like the next like game that they all decided to work together on, which is, honestly, I'm glad we got Death Stranding, but I really wish we got Silent Hills, because it was like I was going to break my like, all right, I usually can't play these games by myself, but I will play this because it looks captivating.
So when it was announced that Silent Hills was canceled, PT was then removed from the PlayStation Store, and there was no way that you could get it again. And I think even it was even removed from the ability to download it if you deleted it. And it became one of those things where, when there's vaporware, something suddenly becomes vaporware, like when Flappy Bird all of a sudden was removed from the App Store, and people were then selling iPhones with the game loaded on it for like thousands of dollars. People were doing that with PlayStation 4s, preloaded with PT.
Oh, damn.
I remember Kate and I were living together. Like, we just moved into our first apartment together. And one day she was like cleaning stuff, and she just like unplugged the PlayStation 4 while it was in rest mode without turning it off. And I like flipped my lid, because I'm like, if you fried this thing, we could lose PT.
You sound like a war vet.
Oh, I was because
I think one of my phones still has Flappy Bird. But it's been re-released now, but my PS3 has the Scott Pilgrim game with like the extra downloadable content that was like cost more at the time, and that was before it disappeared off of the PlayStation Store.
People are kind of doing this with the Deadpool game, because Deadpool and Wolverine is out, and it's made a lot of money and did fairly well, in terms of critical reception. But then there's that Deadpool game from 2013, I think. And people are selling physical copies of it on eBay for hundreds upon hundreds of dollars, because it's been released like digitally, and then it gets delisted, and then it gets re-released on PS4, Xbox One, then it gets removed again, and then people are just we go through cycles, right? And even PT, there's ways that you can download PT now if you lose it for whatever reason. But so many, and I can't actually name any of them, but I do know there have been a lot of fan games that have been made, and indie games that are in the vein of PT. What PT could have been as a full-blown game, not necessarily Silent Hills, but built off the foundations of PT. And then games like Resident Evil 7, for example, or Alien Isolation obviously influenced by PT. There's just there weren't first person horror games like that until like 2014, 2015. PT came out 10 years ago, and then I guess set the stage for what horror games are today. And there's just something about playing those in first person. You had your Amnesia. You had those here, but in Amnesia, by the way, I noped out of that. Oh, I am a girl. I am a wee girl.
You don't even know. It's gotten worse. There's games now where the monsters can literally hear you and come find you.
That's like Alien Isolation.
Yeah,
that's exactly like Alien Isolation.
There's one game I was seeing that's like literally like you have to like find like sigils or like things in like the dark woods, and like there's just all of these horrific abominations that can hear everything coming through your mic and will come find you and destroy you.
Did you
very viscerally?
Did you play Manhunt on PlayStation 2, the Rockstar games?
No, but I do remember that game. I remember that people got one of like that was one of the games that like all like the moms against violent games like back in the day was like people were like all up in arms about it because of all of the violent, brutal stuff you could do in that game.
Yeah, I mean it's now for me who loves lore building, I love that it's part of the Grand Theft Auto universe on the PlayStation 2. And if you act like
is it?
It is. It's alluded to in Grand Theft Auto 3, which came out 2 years before. And then Manhunt comes out and is the entire story is what was referenced in like a single sentence in Grand Theft Auto 3. And then San Andreas makes several references to the game and its setting. So Carcer City. So yeah, it mentions like GTA 3 mentions something about Carcer City and the police chief and corruption within the police force, and in Manhunt is pretty much about that. You know, besides the being a star in a snuff film and the blood and gore and killing. My favorites are the signs. You'll be like going through a level and there'll be like a piece of plywood in front of you with "This way, you fuck" written in blood. But I bring up Manhunt because you could use if you had a USB headset, either like the PlayStation 2 one that came with Solcom or just any one that you could plug in, you could use that to get the enemy's attention. You could like yell stuff into the microphone and the enemies would hear you. And then you could go and run and hide. And I thought that concept was so cool. Until one day I'm playing that game and I yell at some enemy, then I go and run and hide in the shadows. That dude comes looking for me, and then my stupid ass sneezes.
Oh no!
You had a classic cartoon moment.
And he found me and he pulled me out of the shadows and he beat the hell out of me, and I was so mad I broke the headset, and I'm like, I'm never doing this again.
So I was just that you reminded me of like complete end of the spectrum, but I was very enamored with Hey You Pikachu for a long time because I loved bringing my Pikachu around and trying to get it to eat everything that I could possibly find in the different maps, and that game had no real direction. You just hung out with your Pikachu and fed it in different maps. and if you yelled things in the microphone, you could make your Pikachu come and do certain things. And I bet I annoyed everyone in the house every time I played that game because it didn't really work that well, so you had to say it a lot.
Now, is that the one that came with, there was like a special edition N64 that had a talking Pikachu built into it?
I feel like, I don't remember if there's a special, there might have been a special edition N64. I just remember it had its own like connector thing that you plugged into along with the controller so that you could interact like live with your Pikachu while you were playing the game.
But they did that like a bunch of times, or like they tried to do that a couple times because there was that whole thing. You see it in Wind Waker where you could connect your, I guess it was a Game Boy Advance, and use that as like, because it was Four Swords Adventures that you had to have a Game Boy Advance, and you couldn't just play it on its own.
Oh yeah, because there's like the different colored links, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't cool enough for that.
Yeah, I wasn't cool enough either, but like it was sort of an aspect of it that, because on the Game Boy, I had the Game Boy Advance Link to the Past that has Four Swords Adventures on it, but I can't play Four Swords Adventures because it's not connected to anything else, and it's like, connect me to a thing and invite your friends, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't have friends. And but I mean, but you know what I mean? Like, you're just like,
I know what
okay.
you mean.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like, I guess I'll just sit here and be sad.
This is the end.
Hardly focused.
The end.
I'll talk about serious stuff.
Ooh.
That's not about video games, not about movies, but should be good news for all of us should this actually get passed. And we all know how that goes when it comes to government and all that. But the Joe Biden administration, as he is on his way out, he wants to make canceling subscriptions easier because they're not easy to cancel.
Yeah.
They just aren't.
Oh, yeah, they are.
You would think it should be a simple concept. If it's something you can sign up for online, you should be able to cancel it online. And I'd say like probably about a good like 80 and 90% of things, yeah, you can cancel it online, but there are some things like gym memberships, for example, where you just can't. Now, Becky pointed this to me a couple nights ago and I hope I'm not blowing the lid on this by saying this, but it was on Reddit that if you change your, if you sign up for like Plant Fitness, for example, and you change your home location to anywhere in California, then by California law, because they're not going to go out of their way to prove whether or not you're a resident, but because of laws that they have out there, you have to be able to cancel your subscription online. So if you have a Planet Fitness membership and you don't want it anymore, typically you need to go to the nearest gym and cancel it there, which is what I had to do. And boy, do I hate interfacing with people. So you better believe I paid $10 a month for several years before I finally developed the stones and went to my local gym.
Yeah, because
and canceled.
when you go to do it, they have a whole pitch and a whole spiel, like a whole story that they have to NPC out at you when you are trying to cancel so they can retain you, because retaining the customers helps our bottom line.
I was so ready for that. I was so ready. And I go in and I say, I got to cancel my subscription. And this haggard looking woman, just like, she can't be bothered. She's like, all right, why are you canceling your subscription? And I go, because I can't afford it. And she just goes, I hear that. Can't even say it right. That's all she said. It was no trying to get me to stay.
Yeah, because we're in late stage capitalism, baby. Ain't no one care. Rick.
I like this bullet point about getting out of the doom loop, because so for my day job, I've had to talk to a lot of these fucking companies, and you can never get to somebody, and you have to like go through about 20 different phone trees of like, if you could just use our app, it'd be really, really great. And I'm like, you don't have the thing on the app, and we can't log onto the online because you won't let us transfer the service because this was set up by somebody who got fired 3 years ago.
I mean, yeah, real talk though. Yep.
Yeah, and it's like I just want to get to the Verizon attendant so I can get the PIN number set out so I can reset the account, because it's a corporate account, and but you can't. Like, the trick I've had to do is do stuff like go through the sales department, because sales will pick up. They will pick up. They're like, hey, what's
Well, they think they're about to make a sale. Good old Gil's going to make a sale today.
Yeah, and you're just like, no, I need to speak with an actual person who can reset the password.
And that's where you play dumb, and that's where you be like, oh, I dialed the wrong number. I was
no, you don't even do that. You're like, all right, so you just do what every other customer does. You just immediately start talking about what you need.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that I mean, if you're in David's line of work and you need to do this regularly, I feel like this works only so many times before they figure out who you are, and they're
not really. No, it's if the large companies, they have so many people that they don't, unless with the exception of I guess I'll just say this because it isn't. Con Edison, if you do like if they classify your account as a business account, like a large enough account that they move it to your business department, then you have a dedicated person who you have to deal with. But that also means you can't call the main line. You only have to speak with that person.
Oh, okay.
And that person is always some dumbass asshole who like doesn't even pick up the phone, so they can't help you anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So does the mashing the keypad until the phone tree gives up and directs you to a human, does that work with you, or are there some that they think they're smart and it doesn't work?
I've had 3 reactions with the mashing the keypad. The most common that I've run into is just a constant repeat of, "We did not understand that input. Please try again. We did not understand." And it just keeps, because like it used to be that if you did that about 3 times, they're like, "We're sorry you're having a problem. Please hold and we'll get somebody on the line." Now you'll either it'll cycle through that, or it'll be like, "We seem to be having some problems. Feel free to call back when you're not being such a stupid bitch."
Yes, exactly.
For a while, there was a number that I had to call for, it was for medication.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I would call the phone tree, the auto thing would always say, please listen closely as our, wow, this is really failing with that feedback. Please listen closely as our options may have changed. Like, what do you mean may? Like, you don't even know? Like, are you just going in there and just changing the phone tree willy-nilly?
Yeah.
Man, this thing feeds back terribly.
I have yet to run into a phone tree that doesn't start with some sort of like our options have changed. And I'm like, okay, then at this point in time, we don't need to know that. Like,
who cares? Like, I don't call this number regularly. How am I supposed to know? Like, I don't call this several times a day and just go on autopilot and like, all right, dial the number, wait 5 seconds, hit 1, then 2, then 2, then 3. Like, nobody does that. Unless you, well, maybe in your line of work, then maybe.
No, they don't. I don't do that either because the phone trees are always different. And like the one that I've had to call the most is Verizon, and they have 500 different numbers. They have 500 different offices. If you are, they have like Verizon for business, Verizon for small business, Verizon for businesses whose last names begin with an A, Verizon for business.
For puppies.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're calling the wrong one, then they can't find you and they'll direct you to like some other, you can't just like.
It's not just directing you. It's like, okay, hold on. And you're like mid-sentence and then you're just in hold music again or nothing. Sometimes it's just nothing.
Honestly, I would prefer the nothing over the like the ones that go like, thank you for holding. We'll be right back. They don't allow you long enough with the song. And then all of a sudden somebody's like comes in to tell you that you're holding. I'm like, yes, thank you. I'm aware.
I dislike those intensely, especially when they're like, and then it's like, because it pauses just long enough to be like, oh, someone's about to come back, and then it's just music again. Yeah, every time it gets me every time.
The best usage of hold music, in my opinion, is this.
Hello, I'd like the Department of Missing Babies.
Please hold.
Just can't live without you. You know what this is making me think of? The fact that we used to pay with our good money. We didn't just have a ringtone. We had the song that would play when someone called.
Yes, the ringback tones.
The ringback tones.
Yeah. Oh man, I miss those. Take me back to those. Are those still a thing?
I don't know.
I know ringtones are because I know I actually just looked at this recently, and I'm sure there's a way you could do it without jailbreaking your iPhone, but like I would love to have custom ringtones on my iPhone. And of course, it directs me to the Tone store, so that still exists. I'm not paying $1.29 for 30 seconds of music. Go F yourself. But the according to the White House, and this coming from Axios.com, just to give some context to what David is ranting about. A new rule from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau will eliminate customer service, quote unquote, doom loops, allowing consumers to speak with a human service agent with the press of a button, which again, most cases, if you get stuck on that phone tree, even if you get like one option in, then just start spamming the pound key. And then you, most of the time we'll get lucky and then they'll just give up and say, okay,
pound or zero.
We'll redirect you. We can't understand you. Because at that point they have to assume maybe you've got a handicap and mashing the keypad doesn't work.
I've heard that if you do a lot of cussing, but there's also something about inflection. Like, I don't think you can be screaming, but you also can't be like super calm. But if you're just sort of like, you know, fucking fuck, that somehow the AI knows that like this person needs to get to a human soon.
Be great if like the in and on humans end, their CRM, like a window pops up that says like the AI picked this up and it just automatically types out like customer hurling racial epithets.
Yeah.
No, so like real talk though, what it would actually sound like is playing transcription. Hi, my name is Jepson Arp Jobson and Fish Flap Clown. Please call me back at 7-8 because they are not good. Yeah. The audio to text transcriptions are really bad and they're hilarious to read.
Yeah.
But they're not good.
Yeah. Even like the visual voicemail now too. I mean, they at least I know iPhone does. I'm assuming Android's probably was doing it decades before Apple did it, but the transcription of voicemails never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
No way they'll ever perfect it.
And I mean, I've dealt with enough with these phone trees that like I've tried it a couple different ways. And so I'm sure there's like audio out there of me for their corporate training being like, if you do not get me to a motherfucking human in the next 5 fucking seconds, I will find every motherboard that is attached to your fucking CPU and pee on it. Like,
I was a little nervous for a second where that was going. I'm delighted with the results.
And yeah, I haven't seen an uptick.
Well, there's good news coming out of this proposition as well. In fact, I think this has already taken effect. I'll believe it when I see it. But according to Axios and whitehouse.gov, remember, it's not whitehouse.com. I mean, feel free to go to whitehouse.com, but you may not be satisfied with the results, or maybe you will be. But yes, according to the White House, automatic refunds are now being applied by airlines for canceled flights or significantly delayed flights. That being
good.
3 hours for domestic or 6 hours for international, upon which the customer is either not offered or chooses not to accept a rebooking. And also, automatic refunds are also mandated if checked baggage is not delivered within 12 hours of a domestic flight or 15 to 30 hours of an international flight, depending on the duration between point A and point B, or if a la carte services are paid for but not received, like in-flight Wi-Fi, which I personally have been burned by more than once. So that's good. That took long enough.
Yeah, I feel like it's been at least 20 to 30 years of, you know, oh, the door fell off. Well, it's an act of God. I'm sorry. We can't. No, there's nothing. No.
We can get you, they usually like their reimbursement. Like they say they'll pay you like $100 if you're on an overbooked flight and you leave and get on the next one. But then the $100 is in $20 gift cards that are only good at the airport and the concessions within.
Yeah.
And they're not in Hudson. Was it Hudson News is never on that list.
You can get $100 off your next flight with a Velo.
Also, chatbots. We're just kind of talking about this. AI customer service agents. The CFPB planning to issue rules to crack down on ones that are deemed useless, which is pretty much 95% of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Most of the time, I just yell, "Speak to an agent."
Well, it's not even this. If it's like you're trying to do online chat and you get stuck with the bot and the bot just does everything in its power to deflect you. And in my experience, I'll get deflected to the point where I finally am almost able to get to somebody. And then they're like, our hours of operation are 9 a.m. to 9:15 a.m. Thursday through Friday.
Have you tried using the website? Most people have found that most people have found that your website is shitty.
Oh, here's an FAQ that should help. Can it help with anything else?
I don't know if this will be included with it, but I've noticed when running ads on our Instagram, at Hardly Focused on Instagram, when I go to run ads, it deflects me from doing it within the iOS app. I will give Meta some credit here. They don't want people, unless like there's now a rule that's been passed and they have to legally say this, but then for some reason the fee still exists. They say, okay, yeah, if you want to do this through the app, go right ahead, but Apple's going to charge you like 5% for doing it through Apple. So do it on the web. Now I get this pop-up all the time that says if you're going to run ads, boost any of your posts, do it online, do it on a desktop, do Instagram.com. Don't do it in the app because then you're going to get hit with a junk fee. That we are not charging you. Apple is charging you for it. Yeah. I made that mistake once, and I'm never doing it again. Like if I'm gonna pay like $20 to promote the page, I'm gonna pay $20. I'm not gonna pay anything more than that. That's not how well, at least maybe it is how advertising works, but that's not how I'm doing it. So
I've been thinking with all of this of like with all of that, what's gonna happen with that company Rocket Money? Is it Rocket Money? The one that's supposed to be able to like cancel everything for you? Yeah. That's sponsoring all of the podcasts these days?
Yeah, that's garbage. I signed up for that and everything that it told me, oh, you don't need this anymore. Oh. But then it would say, we can't help you with that. You're going to need to call them or see them in person.
With them. My issue with them that no one ever talks about is that when they actually do negotiate a deal, if it's lucrative enough, then they're like, all right, well, we've calculated out how much you would have saved in this, and it's this amount, and you're going to pay us 15% of the amount that we calculated out of that now. It's going to hit your account on this day because we saved you money, and this is, it's reasonable. So it's like the moment that happened once, we're like, all right, I'm never going to have you guys negotiate anything again. Why would I do that in order for me to pay you money?
Yeah.
It was really messed up. And I was like, after that, I was just like uninstalled the app and stopped using it.
I was trying so hard when I was working at WB to get out of there. I was at my wit's end, and this is when I started just like mass applying to just anything. And the first interview I got was with a company and I didn't know about like Rocket and anything that's like Rocket. And it's a local startup that's basically going to, at the time, compete against Rocket. At this point, if they're still in business, then they probably got acquired by them or a competitor. But it was basically one of those organizations. And they didn't even like really allude to it during the interview, because they kept saying it's like project management. It's like what you're doing now, this, that, and the other thing. And then I look up the company. I'm like, oh, so like we have to negotiate with credit card companies and other businesses like this to lower rates. And then the big red flag was, well, because we're a startup, we don't offer health insurance.
Oh God.
But at that time, dude, I was so desperate to get out of that job. I'm like, what hits can I take? How desperate am I right now? And I did not follow through on that, and probably for the best.
Probably for the best, yeah.
Yeah.
So if all goes well, and who the hell knows with the way 24 is going, maybe this will have some bipartisan love and support.
I hope so.
I would like to think that both sides of the aisle are fed up with how difficult it is to do what should be simple operations, canceling subscriptions, or just even talking to humans that have the ability to. As much as I hate talking to humans, when I really need one on the phone, I want to be able to just do it.
Yeah, because it does give you more peace of mind that something's actually being done, as long as that person's notating everything correctly.
Yeah.
Well, which they will, as long as you're not a jerk of them.
Yeah. Well, and you can explain it to them. And that's one of the other frustrating things I have with some of these chit chats. But I can usually say like, hey, look, this is the situation, and these are all of the things that I have done to fix it, and it's not getting fixed. So can you help out?
Yeah. It should be that simple, and it never is. So if both sides can agree on infrastructure, hopefully they can agree on it. It just seems relatively simple, all things considered. I mean, I'm not a genius in the least, but hopefully. And I feel like I didn't say infrastructure correctly.
Infrastructure, sure.
All right.
Close enough, I guess.
David, do you want to, for the fine people, plug your podcasts?
Yeah. Right now I have Thank You 5, which is a musical theater podcast that I do with the co-host Matt. Zach's been on it. We talked about Candide. I have another podcast that Jack has been on that has currently been on in a hiatus that I'm not sure. I haven't decided what I'm doing with it. It's called Friends of the Countess. Go check it out. I might restart it up once the new season of Roni pops up. It's a Roni recap podcast. That one has an Instagram, Friends of the Countess. And then I have a 12 Months of Christmas. It's on the Solid Listen Network. If you are a Solid Listen Patreon, we're trying to get some stuff moved to the public feed, but we keep dropping the ball on that.
We also don't have a premiere date, it looks like, for Roni season 15.
Yeah.
But hey, if you want to bring Friends of the Countess out of hiatus when we get season 15, look, man, I watched all of season 14. I'll watch season 15. I'll join you. I'll be happy to talk about it. I want to see if Jenna still scares the ever living Christ out of me, because boy, is she just tall and intimidating.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for her to blow up.
Right. Like drop the I'm baby act.
I got feedback from Becky that Real Housewives of New Jersey was good this past season. So,
and
then I don't know if you could tell. You recognize my hat? Do you get the reference, David? My hat?
I've been staring at it, and I feel like I don't, and I'm not.
It's from Vanderpump Rules.
Oh,
this is Joe, who was Tom Schwartz's fling.
Oh God, yeah, like the. Sorry, I'm getting douche chills from like their whole thing of like, I am a robot. I have emotion, like that little dance thing.
That's why I like her. That's why I like her. Yeah, she's like me.
She was fine. It's him that's like, oh God.
Schwartz is a dumbass.
Yeah, no. Every time that I see him on TV, it just feels like he gets messier and messier looking.
Yeah.
Both the Toms are idiots, but Schwartz especially, when you look at what he's had, I mean, like Katie, depending on the day.
Yeah.
Because like I don't hate Katie, but at the same time, especially the way she treated Joe, I hate Katie. But Joe, like you look at Schwartz and be like, dude, how did you fuck up with that?
Yeah.
But I've said it before, I'll say it again. I like to root for the underdog. So before she even started selling merch, I told her, I'm like, look, if you start selling those hats, I will buy one.
Okay.
And I'm someone who would sooner buy gadgetry than feed myself for a week. So you better believe I bought a hat. But you know what? This is one of my favorite hats. I love this hat. It's a good quality hat. And for the non-watching audience, it says, Joe, my gosh, I will cut you. So I figured if anyone here would appreciate the reference, it'd be you. Or maybe you too, Zach, if you are also into VPR.
I fell off a little bit just because, like, I really don't like Tom Sandoval. I just didn't want to see them pushing the whole season of just like, look at everyone having to deal with Tom still.
Yeah.
I told you guys about when I saw Sandoval and his band, right?
Yeah. Up at like what, Foxwoods?
Yeah, Mohegan. Yeah. The was it the Wolf Den in Mohegan?
Yeah.
The free venue. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. With the show, I was a big fan up until there was the season where Jackson Brittany got married, and then the season after that they fired everybody and they brought in like Charlie and Dana and some god awful men who were like boring and stupid and annoying. And so I watched one season of that, and then there was another season after that I just was like, I can't. And then Scandival happened, and so I got back into it with that, but it's still very.
It's just cringy. This last season was just very cringy, and like that's why I stopped because I got cringed out.
Have you watched the?
Like y'all are my age.
Yeah, right.
Like, what are you doing?
Have you watched the new show with Jackson Brittany?
And, I heard there's a new show.
Oh, and Kristen too. Kristen's on it.
Yeah, I know Cara Berry has recapped it, but I never really listened to it, and I also don't like Jackson Brittany. I think if it was just Kristen, I probably would have watched it just because she's like a crazy that
she hasn't changed in the least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very boring. I couldn't get into it. I tried it. I think I watched. I don't want to say watched. The entire season was on and played, and I was in the room and in vicinity of the television while it was on. But did I watch it? Intermittently. It's a trope with reality TV where throughout like the whole episode when they're like teasing, what's coming up, there'll be some big blowout, some like huge thing that's going to happen. And when it happens, it's as the end credits are displayed on screen and you see like maybe half of what they were teasing as coming up in that episode. And then the next subsequent episode will show the first 30 seconds of that event, and then it's just everyone goes their separate ways, and maybe it's talked about in confessionals, but otherwise it's like, didn't these people just beat the crap out of each other in a hallway? Are we not talking about that anymore? No? Okay. I wish I made lots of money like that. All right. David, thank you. It's always fun to have you here on the show.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
And Zach, thank you as well. It was a nice surprise to have you here. I know off air we weren't sure if you were going to be here, but I'm happy you were.
Yeah, same.
And for the rest of you, thank you for listening. We will talk at you next time. See you. Bye.
Goodbye.
Randomization may not have happened.
This has been a presentation of the Solid Listen Podcast Network.